Julius was very sleepy and he could hardly keep his eyes open. The whole trouble was that he hated to do things on time. He did not like to go to bed at the hour he was supposed to, and he never wanted to get up in the morning when his mother said, "Time to get up, Julius." And now he was sleepy, now in the middle of the afternoon. It was raining hard outside, and in the big library where he was sitting a large open fire was burning merrily. Near the fireplace was a cuckoo clock, and Julius always loved to watch the little cuckoo come out and tell anyone who happened to be listening just what time it was. "It's almost time for the cuckoo to come out," said Julius. "But oh gracious, how sleepy I am. I know I was late in going to bed last night, but I don't see why I should be so dreadfully sleepy. I do hope I will stay awake until the cuckoo says 5 o'clock. It is so much nicer to hear him on the hour than at other times, because he only says, 'cuckoo,' once when the hand is at the half hour." "Cuckoo," said the cuckoo bird in the clock, and then he said it 4 times more. Each time he made a little bow as he spoke, and when he had said, "cuckoo," for the 5th time, Julius was waiting to watch the little door close. The cuckoo in the clock always lives behind a little door over the face of the clock, and when he is not telling the time he is in there. But this time the door did not close. And the cuckoo stayed out of his little home bobbing and saying, "cuckoo," many times over, until at last it sounded like, "Julius, Julius, Julius." "Yes," said Julius, "you are calling me by my right name. How are you, Mr. Cuckoo Bird of the clock?" The little bird was made of wood, to be sure, but he seemed so certain of himself and so well satisfied that Julius felt he must be alive. "I am well, I thank you kindly," said the cuckoo bird. "But I don't have to ask you." "Why not?" asked Julius. "Because I know," said the cuckoo bird. "You are sleepy, and it's not the time to sleep." "Ha, ha, ha. Whatever would you do if you were a clock, or if your home was at the top of one?" "Well, I am not a clock," said Julius, "and I am jolly glad of it." "Tut, tut," said the cuckoo bird. "You are getting quite cross, master." "Julius, too little sleep. Well, well, I suppose I must forgive you. But it's a shame you couldn't live in a clock for a time." "What do you mean?" asked Julius, who was quite frightened now. He felt the little cuckoo bird would hop down and pick him right up and put him in the clock. "If you could live in a clock and take my place, you would have to be on time. 6 o'clock would mean 6 o'clock and not half past. 7:30 in the morning would not mean 8:15. Ah no, in the clock. We keep good time. We live on the moment and on the hour and half hours. We come out to tell people to remember that the time is going by and they mustn't waste it, for it is so extremely precious." "Don't you believe in people sleeping?" asked Julius. To be sure, said the cuckoo, "but I believe they should sleep at the right time. They should not choose another time for it, such as the middle of the afternoon, because they sat up too late the night before." Julius was very much ashamed. He felt the cuckoo bird knew that he had been doing all that, and he wished the bird would go back in his little home and shut the door. He was getting more afraid every second that he would be taken back there. And oh dear, how he would hate to live in a clock. "Just suppose," said the cuckoo bird, "that I did things at the wrong time. Suppose I should come out at 6 o'clock and tell everyone it was 8? You can't imagine it, can you? And why not? Because I have had the training of a clock. I have been an assistant in keeping the time, and if I don't notice that you think more of the time, I will put you back of the clock." The cuckoo bird banged his little door, and Julius, awaking with a start, rubbed his sleepy eyes, and said, "I shall always do things on time from now on, for how dreadful it must be to live back of a clock and have the hours depend so much on you." Zuzeppa, said Daddy, was a monkey who had come from Africa, and he was going to give a special performance of his acting. The special performance was to be given on a day set aside by the keeper. Of course it couldn't be advertised all around as a circus kid, but the keeper told all his special children friends who came to the zoo very often, and they told their friends, and it got around so that for the day of the performance the monkey house was filled with children. "Let me shake hands with the performer," the keeper said, and he shook hands with Zuzeppa. Then they each bowed, and the keeper said, "Now, Zuzeppa will show you his circus tricks." So Zuzeppa hung by his tail and turned many somersaults. He swung back and forth and jumped and twisted and turned. He did the most marvelous of circus tricks, and all the children clapped their hands, and the other monkeys yelled and screamed, "Well done, Zuzeppa." No one else knew what the monkeys meant, but everyone knew they were excited. They weren't jealous of Zuzeppa, for they knew he wanted to learn tricks and be a trick-performing monkey. Besides, he had worked hard enough to have a whole monkey house to himself for all afternoon. "Now," said the keeper, "Zuzeppa will do his special trick." It has been done before by monkeys, but Zuzeppa never did it before, and he has been practicing it so he could do it beautifully for this performance. The keeper took out a little wooden table and put a napkin upon it and a cloth. Then Zuzeppa spread the cloth over the table, reached down in a box the keeper had, and took out a knife and a fork and a spoon. He put all these on the table and then tied the napkin around his neck. Next he took a little broken chair which was in his cage and sat upon it. The keeper acted as the waiter, and passed things to Zuzeppa. And what do you suppose Zuzeppa did? What? Asked the children. Zuzeppa behaved at the table just as though he were a real person. He ate with his fork and he cut with his knife. He peeled his banana which he had for dessert and then he ate it, wiping his mouth with his napkin. But when he was all through his meal and had put his hands in a finger bowl to make them nice and clean, he took a pipe, which the keeper handed to him, struck a match and lighted the pipe. He only smoked for a second or two, blowing the smoke out, as he didn't especially care for it. But oh, how happy he was when the children laughed and clapped their hands. And this is a true story. I am the king of this pond, said Mr. Bullfrog. If any one comes here I don't like, I swallow him. That is the way to get rid of creatures you don't like. Just swallow them. I've heard people talking who were rowing on the pond and who were gathering pond lilies, and I've heard them say how they were interrupted by other people when they had some important work to do, and that the people didn't care in the least if they were interrupting. Googe room, googe room. I can imagine nothing more annoying. But I cannot understand why people do not swallow these other people who come and annoy them and interrupt them. Just suppose an insect hops on my nose and says, "Sorry, Mr. Bullfrog, but I do hope I'm not annoying you." I don't pay any attention to that speech. I know it's not so. If he cared about not annoying me he wouldn't land on my nose. But I don't bother to answer him back, for that would be beneath my dignity. So I just swallow him. Allie Ba, said Daddy, is a rag doll. Her real name is Alice Gustava. Ariel Star Jewel Bright Carol Carmen Cucumber Green. Mrs. Cucumber Green is her mother's make-believe name, or I should say it was her mother's make-believe name. Her mother is a grown-up lady now, but still she has kept Allie Ba, and when little girls go to call on her she brings out Allie Ba and Allie at once makes friends. Now, this summer Allie's mother went to the seashore. She left Allie in charge of the city apartment. She told Allie to keep watch over the apartment and to see that all was safe. Allie was the name she was always called by for short, as you know. Now, when Allie's great-aunt's birthday came she wanted to send her a present as she had always done. So she sent some pillows for the porch where her great-aunt loved to sit. On the day of the birthday in the excitement Allie's great-aunt did not see the little card which said, "To dear great-aunt Mary, with love and many happy returns from Allie Ba." But the next day when Allie's great-aunt was looking over her presents she found the little card and knew that it belonged with the present of the pillows which she had opened and which she had thought someone else had given to her. Well, she sat right down and she wrote Allie Ba this letter and sent it to be given to Allie Ba, care of Allie's mother, who was at the seashore, as I have told you. This was the letter Allie received, and because she thought it was such a nice letter she wanted to let Jack and Evelyn and their friends hear it, too. My dear Allie Ba, the letter commenced. I find this morning on reading over my birthday cards that the pillows are from you, so will you please accept my thanks for your sensible, most useful, pretty gift. When I received my presents yesterday it was a distinct loss not to find a gift from you, and I thought perhaps you were too hot to shop or had some other good reason, but I am glad I thought wrongly and you did remember me as of old. I shall think of you as I lie, sit, or back up, against these pillows. I suppose you are in the city this summer, as I have not heard of any ocean dips on your part. Perhaps salt water might not agree with you. It is well to be cautious, which means careful, and run no risks. You might feel a responsibility with guarding the apartment but you have a calm, brave, quiet nature which will keep you from a nervous breakdown, I feel sure. With love and thanks. Affectionately, Great-Aunt Mary. Wasn't that a nice letter? Well, Allie's mother, on a trip up to town took the letter to Allie, for she couldn't very well go to the door and get it from the postman if her mother had sent it on by mail. But oh, she was so pleased to have a letter from Great-Aunt Mary. And she smiled in her rag doll way, and the paint on her face cracked just a little with joy, for she loved Aunt Mary, who had often let her sit near her and draw up close as an affectionate, loving doll likes to do. And she told her mother to tell Great-Aunt Mary that she was so happy with her letter, and that she hoped Great-Aunt Mary would have many, many happy returns of her birthday, for she was the best Great-Aunt Mary that ever lived. I can't understand, said Mrs. Chickadee, how creatures can live together and quarrel all the time. It is such waste of perfectly good time in the first place. In the second place, it isn't any fun. Now, singing and chirping and worm hunting and breadcrumb parties are all lots of fun, but quarreling isn't any fun at all. It makes creatures unhappy and it makes them very often quite sad. Even if they get the best of a quarrel, they don't feel all happy and excited as they do after a fine party. Now, the sparrows fight all the time. But no one would ever describe the sparrow as a merry, happy little bird. There's the starling. No one would describe him as a happy bird. And the starling is a fighter, too. We scold in fun, nice chuckling, scolding notes we give, but we are famous for our good spirits. Chickadee. I'm sure most people know what we look like with our little black-capped heads and the patch of black right under our beaks. We have pretty throats, we're told. The black patches are soft-looking and rather smart, too. We wear simple gray suits and have white touches on our wings. In the winter time we like to be about, too. And nothing upsets us. We never grumble over the weather. We can't understand how people can grumble over the weather. To us it is so foolish. The weather is going to do just what it wants to, in the first place, and isn't going to pay attention to anyone, nor is it going to pay any attention to what anyone thinks. And yet how few seem to realize that. Did our mother receive this leaf as a gift? Asked the first little brown caterpillar. Oh no, said the second little brown caterpillar. She just liked the looks of it or thought the taste of it would be good for us, and so she just took it and left it here. Gracious, said the third little brown caterpillar. You know caterpillars can't wait until they're asked to have their meals. They can't wait to be given leaves, said the fourth little brown caterpillar. They'd never get them if they did, said the fifth little brown caterpillar. And we must have leaves in our lives, said the sixth little brown caterpillar. How handsome we will be when we become blue swallowtail butterflies, said the seventh little brown caterpillar. I greatly look forward to that day, said the eighth little brown caterpillar. And then we shall fly about and drink honey, said the ninth little brown caterpillar. And people will forget that we were caterpillars and will say, look at those beautiful butterflies with their blue markings, added the 10th little brown caterpillar. We will pretend not to hear them, but it will please us, said the 11th little brown caterpillar. Of course it will please us, said the 12th little brown caterpillar. We will eat and grow strong, so we will be very beautiful, said the 13th little brown caterpillar. And eat, too, because it is so pleasant to eat, said the 14th little brown caterpillar as he took an extra large nibble at their leaf dining room. So they ate until they were a little bigger, and then they went off, each one alone, to look for more food and adventures. Tell me what happened, Mr. Catbird, said Billy Brownie. Well, I was sitting on the fence, this very same fence upon which I'm now sitting, and some children were playing in the yard nearby. While they were playing, I made all sorts of queer sounds just like a cat. You know how I can take off the various sounds of a cat? I most certainly do that, said Billy Brownie. They didn't know where the cat could be, and they began to look for the cat. I almost fell off the fence laughing when they started to look for the cat. Then when they were looking by the cellar stairs and under the old tree yonder, I took great chances that they might see that I was not the cat, and I made the same sounds again. They kept saying to each other, well, I'm sure I heard a cat that time. I really and truly almost fell off the fence laughing. Then they came back and went on with their games. They saw me sitting here and I had my beak tight and looked as though I hadn't made a sound. I know, said Billy Brownie. Then I sat very still, of course, and one of them said, well, all I can see is that gray bird with the black cap. Of course they meant they could see me, and I was the one making all the sounds like a cat. They finished playing after a time and began to dig in the garden, transplanting the lettuce and hoeing the beans and watering the vegetables. Then I began to make sounds like the different birds, and they would turn to one another and say, what song is that? Whose voice was that? Do you know what bird that could have been? And they'd look about and not see any of the other birds, for hardly any birds were around then, and I sat, looking so quiet and meek. And then I heard one of them say, I still don't see any other creature but that gray bird. I thought surely then that they knew I was fooling them, but I found out. They didn't know I could make sounds like a cat and sing like the other birds and sometimes like a mockingbird, too. But they didn't know. And they've all gone off now. And still they're wondering where the cat could have been which they thought they heard, and where all the birds were they were unable to see. Ha, 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 that is the greatest joke, to think I fooled them all. Well, you're a smart bird, there is no mistake about that, said Billy Brownie, and I can tell you I admire your smartness. I fooled them, chirped Mr. Catbird. They didn't know the catbird when they saw him, nor did they know him when they heard him. At his little jokes. This was the story the fairy queen told before her banquet the other evening. An old lady had a little cabin home just off these woods. Her only companion was a cat. The cat was black but two paws were white, and the old lady thought they were very wonderful. Now and again the old lady had to go into the village to buy food. Sometimes the cat would follow, wearing a little jingling bell, for the old lady wanted to be sure that the cat had lots to eat, but that he would never get a bird. That was why she had him wear the collar with the little bell. The bell warned the birds he was coming, so they could get away. He could be heard coming along by the sound of the tingling bell. But this time, when the old lady went into the village, the cat was sleepy and sat on the porch in the sunshine. "Will you come, pussy?" she asked. But the pussy blinked his eyes as though to say, "I am sleepy." So she went off. When she came back she found to her horror that the cottage had been burned down. Someone had left a match lighted in the woods, and a fire had started which had spread. But even though the house had burned down, the cat sat in front of where the house should be, trying to say, "I am sorry, but at least I am here to welcome you." And the old lady hugged her cat and said, "You are always glad to welcome me, and with you here I do not feel so badly about the house." "But," said the fairy queen, "I used my magic wand, and in 3 minutes and 4 seconds and 2/4 seconds the house was up again." And the old lady had both her home and her cat. That was a real fairy tale. The fairies and their friends all said, "It was indeed," said the fairy queen. It was about make-believe characters for a make-believe story, but that makes it a real fairy tale, And then they all enjoyed the fairy queen's fine banquet. The circus was in the city, said Daddy, and every day the circus people and the animals had performed for thousands and thousands of children and many, many grown-ups. "You know," said one of the clowns, "that I think it would be a good idea some morning when we haven't any performance and no parade and no practice performance, if a good many of us went to one of the hospital yards and performed for the children who can't get out and see us." And they did. Every little child was either in a balcony bed or in a wheeled chair when through the big doors of the large hospital yard there came a parade. A real circus parade. And then the circus band struck up a fine tune and the clowns marched about and made jokes and giggled. Oh, how they did laugh. And the children all laughed too and clapped their hands. The lady walked the tight rope with a parasol over her head, ponies ran around the yard, and there were some trapezes for those who swung and hung by their knees and their feet. The elephants did their act too, and the children fed them peanuts. But happier than any child, happier than any of the circus people who had come to make the sick children happy, was the merry, jolly old clown who had thought it all up. Quack, 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 help, 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 shrieked and cackled more than 100,000 ducks at the same time. Quack, quack, help, 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 they kept on cackling. "There must be some trouble over at the duck farm," said a man who was a fireman and who was sitting outside the firehouse in a town some distance away when he heard this quacking. He told another fireman that there surely must be some trouble at the duck farm. "I think," said the fireman, "I will get out my spyglass and see what I can make out." For the quacking kept up and still it sounded very queer to the fireman. "Don't you suppose," said the second fireman, "that one of the ducks has been hurt and the others are quacking in sympathy?" "I don't believe," said the first fireman, "that 100,000 ducks would be so sympathetic at the same time. And they wouldn't make so much noise. I fear something has happened over there." And he looked through his spyglass in the direction of the duck farm. "There. I see something like smoke," he said. "Yes, I'm sure I see something like smoke. Near the duck farm," said the other fireman, getting up, and adding, "We'd better send out the alarm and get started." "It's away from the farm that I see the smoke," said the first fireman, "but maybe the ducks are afraid it will reach them. It's one of those forest fires, I think." So an alarm was sent out in the town and the firemen rushed to the firehouse and got on their fire clothes as they hurried away on the fire engine. How the horses did run! Still the ducks were quacking. The horses galloped, the men held on, and the ones who guided the fire horses drove as they had never driven before. "It's a fire," shouted the people on the farm. "A terrible forest fire. Oh, send for the firemen and the engines. Oh, send for help, help, help." And they telephoned wildly to the town. But just at that moment, when the people on the farm felt that help could not come in time to save them and the 100,000 ducks, along dashed the fire engines and the brave firemen drawn by the splendid horses. They rushed past the duck farm to the forest fire which was coming steadily nearer. "Come men, come people," they shouted as they went by. And every one went rushing to help the firemen. The dreadful forest fire was stopped just before it reached the duck farm, and the ducks cackled softly and happily, though still they were nervous from all they had been through. "We are safe, quack, quack, we are safe. How did you ever get here before we telephoned?" asked the people on the farm. "Your ducks sent us the alarm," replied one of the firemen.